Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a 6 Samurai deck profile. So this deck is absolutely crazy and can just do all sorts of stuff to be able to get you a full board of negations and all sorts of crazy plays. If you guys are looking for a combo deck, this is the deck for you. It is super nostalgic and I love playing around with 6 Samurais because you'll never ever draw the same amount of cards and not have a play to go through with. Because this deck has so many different plays that you can go with. This deck never bricks, which is actually crazy. So without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on your screen, become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have all sorts of awesome rewards, you guys, like getting your name description for a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon along with test hands. And let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Legendary 6 Samurai Kizan. So Kizan is a really good card because this card can actually special summon itself from your hand if you control another 6 Samurai monster on your side of the field. So this card is actually the card that you're going to be looping constantly to get your copies of your Bushido counters onto your copies of your Gateway to the 6, Temple of the 6, and your Shien's Dojo. So you have a lot of different plays with this card that you're going to be looping, but as long as you have a 6 Samurai on your field, you can special summon this card from your hand. But if you control 2 6 Samurai monsters, then you can special summon this card with 2100 attack, which is pretty cool. It also gains 300 defense, so it goes to 800 defense. We then play 3 copies of these Legendary 6 Samurai Kaigeki. Kaigeki is a really cool effect because when this normal summon, you can special summon a level 4 or lower 6 Samurai monster from your hand, and then while you control a 6 Samurai monster with a different name, this card gains 1500 attack, going to 1700 attack points, which is pretty good. We play 2 copies of Mizuho and 2 copies of Shinai. Basically, if you control Mizuho, you can special summon Shinai from your hand. If you control Shinai, you can special summon Mizuho from your hand. But they're really good cards because your copy of your Mizuho has the ability that once per turn, you contribute another face-up 6 Samurai monster to target a card on the field and destroy it. Whereas Shinai, if this card is tributed, then you get to target a 6 Samurai monster in your graveyard, except itself, and add it back to your hand, which is a really good effect. They work together. And actually, in the lore, they're actually together, which is kind of cool. We then play a single copy of Grandmaster, the 6 Samurai. Grandmaster is a really good card in the deck because you can only control one of it, but you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can target a 6 Samurai monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand, which is a really cool effect as well. We play a single copy of Kizaru. Kizaru, when this card is special summoned from the deck, when this card is special summoned, you can add from your deck to your hand 1 6 Samurai monster with a different attribute from the monsters you control. And if exactly 1 6 Samurai monster you control and no other cards would be destroyed, then you can banish this card from your graveyard instead, which is pretty cool just to protect your monsters. I play a single copy of Secret 6 Samurai Hatsume. Hatsume is really cool because you can banish 1 6 Samurai monster from your graveyard and or face up from your field, and then you get to target a 6 Samurai monster in your graveyard except another copy of itself and special summon it, which is really good. Just to be able to special summon a monster is just awesome with this card. We then play a single copy of Legendary 6 Samurai, or Legendary Secret of the 6 Samurai. This card is really a neat card. It is a really good card in the deck because when you normal summon or special summon a Secret 6 Samurai monster, then you can special summon this card from your hand. And you only use the effect of this card once per turn. And once per turn, you can banish a level 4 or lower 6 Samurai monster from your graveyard. And this turn, this card's attribute, level, and attack and defense become the banished monsters, which is pretty good. We then play a single copy of the 6 Samurai, Secret 6 Samurai Fuma. Fuma is a tuna, which is a really cool card. Basically, what this card does is if this card is destroyed by battle by card effect, you can special summon 1 Secret 6 Samurai or a 6 Samurai monster from your deck, except another copy of itself. And if exactly 1 6 Samurai monster you control and no other cards would be destroyed by a card effect, then you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. We then play a single copy of Shien's Squire, which is basically just an Earth Tuner monster that I play in the deck to help out the deck a little bit, because if a 6 Samurai monster you control battles and during the damage calculation, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. That 6 Samurai monster cannot be destroyed by battle this turn, but basically you're just playing this so you can go into Naturia Beast. We then play a single copy of Great Shogunshin. Great Shogunshin is ridiculous in this deck because if you control 2 6 Samurai monsters, you can just instantly special summon this card from your hand. And also your opponent can only activate 1 spell or trap card each turn, and if this card would be destroyed, then you can destroy a face of 6 Samurai you control instead. This card is ridiculously good just to be able to instantly put a 2500 beat stick on your field and make it so your opponent can only activate 1 spell or trap a turn. We then play 2 copies of Fireflint Lady. Fireflint Lady is just here as an extender for your link materials because you can special summon this card if you control a warrior monster, but you can only activate its effect once per turn. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Call by the Grave, because Call by the Grave just stops our opponent's hand traps, and we're trying to use our Battle Shogun to get into our copy of the Gateway of the Six as quickly as possible. So this card is really important just to stop our opponent's hand traps. One copy of Pot of Avarice. I cannot tell you how deep you go into this deck. It's ridiculous. This deck is just... you go all in all the way through the deck, and like by the end of the first turn, you have like 20 cards left in the deck. It's ridiculous how deep you can draw into this deck and play your turns out. We then play a single copy of Reinforcements of the Army. Reinforcements of the Army literally searches any of your 6 Samurai monsters, which is really good in the deck, except for Grandmaster. We then play a single copy of Monster Reborn because it's a great extender in the deck. One copy of World Legacy Succession, because playing an additional copy of Monster Reborn is great, and this deck does play Sword Yugioh, so it's really easy to summon it into its zones. We play a single copy of Instant Fusion, because Instant Fusion helps out the deck quite a lot, to be able to have basically another copy of a Call by the Grave to be able to negate hand traps is pretty important. We play 3 copies of the Xian's Smoke Signal. Xian's Smoke Signal helps out the deck a lot in this particular build, because it adds any of your level 3 or lower 6 Samurai monsters from your deck to your hand, which is going to be copies of Kaigeki or Fuma and a lot of other cards like that. Usually you're going to add your Kaigeki from your deck to your hand, or your Mizuho or Shinai, because they're level 3 as well. We then play the best card in the entire deck, which is 1 copy of Gateway of the Six. So we're going to go into why this card is actually crazy. Because every time you summon a 6 Samurai monster, if you normal summon it or special summon it, it doesn't matter, you put 2 Bushido counters on this card. And you can move Bushido counters on your side of the field up to the number of the effect you're trying to activate. And this card is not once per turn, which makes it broken. So basically what this card does is you can remove 2 counters to target a 6 Samurai or a Xian monster, and then that target gains 500 attack. No big deal. Okay, it gains 500 attack and you can get big. That's fine. I can make Utopia double and do the same thing, right? Okay. The 4 effect. The 4 effect is where it gets crazy. So the 4 effect is you can remove 4 counters from anywhere on your field to add a 6 Samurai monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, which is why you're constantly looping your copy of Kizan, because Kizan is going to be able to special summon itself back to your field instantly once you use this effect, which basically means you're paying 2 tokens to just loop this card over and over again to be able to get its effect off. And this card lets you remove them from anywhere on the field. So if you control a copy of, say, Temple of the Six as well, you're going to be getting 3 tokens every time you can control, or every time you summon a 6 Samurai monster. So once you start building up where you can get 4 tokens every time you summon, this card just becomes a constant loop where your opponent cannot get out of it. Especially if you have Battle Shogun along with your copy of Temple and Gateway, you pretty much have won the game, because there's nothing you cannot access in your deck, which is really cool. So, the 6 effect also says that you can target a Xian effect monster in your graveyard and special summon it, so you can get back your copy of Great Shogun Shin if you need to, which is pretty helpful. But the Temple of the Six is really good because each time a 6 Samurai monster you control is normal or special summon, you can place a Bushido counter on this, and the monster your opponent controls lose 1,000 attack, or 100 attack for each Bushido counter on this card. I will tell you guys, when you play this deck, you really need some dice. You really need some dice to keep track, some D20s, to be able to keep track of all the tokens. That is my one dad advice of this entire video. Get some dice. Play this deck. We then play 2 copies of 6 Samurai United. Now this card can only hold 2 counters at a time, but you can remove both the counters and send this card to the graveyard to draw 2, which is really nice to be able to just dig into the deck a little bit. And also you can just constantly remove the counters from the copy of your Gateway, or this instead of the Gateway, so you can hold them on the Gateway and keep this like a small bank to be able to keep your counters on it. But you can also, each time a 6 Samurai monster is summoned, this card gets another counter. But the maximum is 2. We then play 3 copies of Xian's Dojo. Xian's Dojo is really good because each time a 6 Samurai monster is summoned, normal or special summon, then you get to put a Bushido counter on this card, and then you can send this card to the graveyard, special summon a 6 Samurai monster or a Xian monster from your main deck whose level is less than or equal to the amount of Bushido counters on this card. So it's ridiculously good just to be able to get you an additional Bushido counters on your side of the field. And you basically are playing right here 7 extra ways to be able to go in for your Bushido counters, along with your 2 copies of Battle Shogun, which is 9, so because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or excuse me, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you have 8 with Gateway, and then the 2 copies of your Shogun in the extra deck, so you have 10 ways to hold counters in this deck, so it's really easy to. We then play a couple of equip spells just to help you out with the deck with Azul, which is a single copy of DDR, which is going to get your banished cards back, Moon Mirror Shield, which can help you beat over any card in the deck, or any card that your opponent is going to put out against you. 1 copy of Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, because you can banish 2 warriors to add it back to hand. And a single copy of Living Fossil, because Living Fossil is an additional monster reborn if you do hard draw it. But these are basically here so you can use your copy of your Isolde to be able to go off with additional plays to summon out Kizaru. Then Kizaru will get you a search to be able to go off with more plays. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Battle Shogun. So Battle Shogun is probably the best card in the entire extra deck. And when I heard this card was coming out, I was like, oh, well, they're going to reban Gateway. But they haven't yet, because Six Samurais just haven't taken off the way that I thought they would. But basically what this card does is if this card is link summoned, then you get to discard a card to add any card from your deck to your hand that can hold Bushido counters. And you can only see the effect of this card once per turn, which is basically you're going to summon this and add Gateway. That's basically what you're going to do. And then each time a Six Samurai monster is normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, you can put a Bushido counter on this card, and this card gains 100 attack for each Bushido counter on this card. Or on the field, I have literally gotten this card up to like 5,000 or 6,000 attack points in a duel before, because this card is just ridiculous, because you can get so many Bushido counters, and you can loop this. If you can establish the loop correctly, where you can just keep special summoning your copy of Kizan and just keep getting it off the board, you can literally get this card to almost infinite attack points, which is crazy. We then play a single copy of Shien. Shien is really good because it negates a spell or trap once per turn, and it's probably one of the best negations in the entire deck. 1 copy of Shadow of the Six Samurai Shien. This card is just an extender to get you more Bushido counters on your side of the field, because it is a Six Samurai monster, and it helps you get your copies of Kizan off the field, which is pretty nice. 1 copy of Millenniumizer Trick, because it's your instant fusion target to help you stop your opponent's hand traps. Borreload Savage, because it can help out a lot in the deck to be able to go into this as an end board to be able to stop your opponent from all sorts of crazy plays. 1 copy of Naturia Beast, because it can negate spells by just sending the top card of your deck to the graveyard, or top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard. You play a single copy of Herald of the Arclight, because it's an additional negation, and you can use a Mizuho or a Shinai plus your Shien Squire or Fuma to go into this, so it's really easy to go into. Levineer the Sea Dragon, because it gets your banished cards back from the graveyard. Number 60, Timeless, because it can doubly attack with monsters, especially summon something from graveyard, or let you draw 2 and discard 1. So this card is a really good extender just to be able to help you dig into the deck. We play 2 copies of Skull Dread. Skull Dread is ridiculous in this deck because it's going to let you draw 4 and then put 2 back or 3 back on top of the deck, or the bottom of the deck, excuse me, in any order. And then also you can special summon a monster from your hand once per turn, and then any monster that's summoned in this card's zone gains 300 attack. This card is really good at just helping you getting the consistency of the deck, and you're going to loop Sword Yugioh a lot. 1 copy of Appaloosa. Appaloosa is really good in the deck too, because it's going to give you additional negations, because you can establish a board with a Six Samurai Shien, Appaloosa with 4 negates, Borreload Savage, which is 6 negates, plus a Naturia Beast and a Herald, and your opponent's pretty much not going to be able to play the game, because you're going to have 4 negates on this, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, this is as many as you want, so you're going to have up to 8 negates on the field at a given time. 1 copy of Isolde, because Isolde is ridiculously easy to get into, and you use her effect to be able to get cards out of the deck, which is just super helpful to mill the deck so you don't draw into them. And searches a warrior monster and special summons Kizaru to the field. And then a single copy of Masquerena, because you can end with Masquerena and 2 of your copies of your Kizans on the field, or Kizan and another Six Samurai monster on the field, and then link IP plus another card on the field, or 2 on the field, and go into Appaloosa during your opponent's turn in a crunch situation, and it helps out to go into Appaloosa to give you additional negation. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it, because it's a really cool deck to play with. I recommend that you guys, like I said in the video, if you're gonna play Six Samurai, you're gonna need some dice, because this deck just gets so many counters on it. It's ridiculous, and you're gonna have to keep track of them. So it's pretty important, or at least a notepad to keep track of them. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Definitely tell us what you think of this deck down in the comments down below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.